Serious, runaways, why did you leave and where are you now? My parents didn't want me. When I was about 14, I realized I didn't want them either and left. I'm 23, I work in the deli department at a grocery store, and I'm a year-ish off from my bachelor's degree. Parent was emotionally abusive, so I left, was homeless for a while, joined the military, and it's now 4 years later. I'm happily married to someone I met in the army, and we have a baby. Life is good. Funny how relationships with abusive parents get better when you leave. My mom is one of the most abusive parents I've ever met, but when I moved abroad for 7 months she was the best and the most caring mother in the world. Because I was 27 and I considered it fine to move out even though it's a taboo for unmarried women to move out of their parents' home in Indonesia. My parents considered it running away. Tons of drama happened. Ended up attempting to elope because I didn't want to deal with their crap at my wedding. Found out I still need parental permission to get married in Indonesia despite being in my late 20s. Finally got married now. Very relieved. I moved out one day when my parents weren't home. Mother was emotionally abusive and is mentally ill. 5 years later things are looking up. Finally got a job with my degree. Got my license to drive, something my mother wouldn't allow before with her anxiety issues. I tried after not talking to my parents for 6 months to try to build a relationship again, and things just went back to the way they were. No matter how much I tried to get her to see someone, if anything she got worse. So I cut off contact again for my own mental health. It took a long while, but I've made it to a place where I'm finally happy. Mom had a lot of health issues, both mental and physical, which led to alcohol dependency. Dad and my little sister just tuned them out and pretended nothing was wrong. Since I was the oldest, I always felt more pressure to set an example. If I did poorly in school, even when my sister did well, I was setting a bad example. Didn't clean my room right and I was a bad example. Constantly put down, and even on occasion physically abused, like being hit in the face with a rake over something stupid. Thankfully my mom's sister was 10 years younger than her and not oblivious to what was going on in my home. I was ready to run away when I was in high school, but she took me in. I stayed with her every school break and most weekends when I couldn't stay with friends. I still had to live with my parents during the school week, but it wasn't as bad since I did some extracurriculars. The days I didn't have extracurriculars, I had a teacher who would always stay late to grade papers. She would leave her room open for us, and I, as well as a few other kids who didn't have the best home lives, would sit around for an hour or two and do homework and talk. In the end my mom and I mended our relationship, but didn't get to rebuild it before she passed away. She still would never admit to her problem, and my dad, whom I love dearly, is still in denial, which is fine at this point. He wants to remember her how he loved her, and that's okay. I was kicked out at 17 and briefly came back a couple months before I turned 18. I overheard my parents talking about sending me to the all-girls discipline school that my sister had been going to. Thing was, you couldn't check out once you turned 18. You had to finish however long you were sent there for, which would have been the remainder of 11th grade and my senior year. I called my boyfriend at the time to pick me up and just left without saying anything. Couch surfed or lived in a shelter for the rest of high school and some of college. 19. I left because I was miserable and it wasn't my fault. My mother wanted to control my life. Wanted me to be a part of the family, do the chores she can't do, and be at her beck and call, all at the expense of my happiness and sanity. This woman put locks on my door and locked me out if I didn't get up at 7 AM to go with her to her appointments. Took away my doctor's appointments. It had been over a year since I saw my eye doctor and she knew I needed it badly. Called me ungrateful. Took away my things. Forbade me from seeing my boyfriend because he stood up for me. And still expected me to be happy with her at the end of the day. Mind you, I am not what you call neurotypical. I have severe depression, severe anxiety, ADHD, and probably a bunch of other undiagnosed disorders. I was previously suicidal. I self-harmed and I was hospitalized 2 years ago. How dense do you have to be to realize that maybe it's you that needs to change and not just me? Pitting the blame on me and saying it's no one's fault but my own. I finally got tired of it and left the car while she was in her appointment. I cried a lot that day. I cried a lot that week. But I'm getting better. I live with my boyfriend now. I am doing job training through vocational rehab and expect a job offer in the next few weeks. I still talk to my mother, but I stay busy so I don't have to see her. I get to be with the one I love all day every day, and that's pretty dang sweet. Are you Irish and did your mom have breast cancer? Because I used to know someone with an almost identical story. I was 15. My stepmom was mean and vindictive and my dad never believed me. I had a full-time job and didn't need to put up with their crap. So off I went. Now I'm an engineer at a Fortune 100 tech company, married with kids. I get along with my dad now, but she's still a bee. Dude, what full-time job did you have at 15? I left when I was 19 because I had a massive argument with my mum where she threatened to kick me out and told me she wished I'd never been born. I went to live with my nan for a few months while I was sorting accommodation out with the council, moved into my own flat in supported housing and ended up being homeless on and off and in and out of work until a few years ago. I'm 29 now and been living in a shared house with friends for the past 3 years. I've got an awesome job and I've got the most wonderful boyfriend who includes me in things with his mum and son as part of the family, which is cool. I did speak to my mum after what had happened. She denied ever saying anything horrible to me and I just had to accept it was something I would have to pretend never happened. We don't speak now, but it's totally unrelated to what happened when I left home. My mom kicked me out and said I needed to move into my dad's. She's convinced herself that I decided to leave, so I know the feeling. I'm glad things worked out for you. I spent a month non-stop out of my mind on LSD because I thought it had opened my mind and helped me understand the world better. It only raised more questions. I needed to get away from my family, friends, school and work to think. So I started slowly draining my bank account into cash for over course of a month as to not look dodgy. A week after I graduated high school I quit my job, left my phone on nightstand, packed a bag and paid a friend to keep quiet and drive me to the bus station in the next city over. I took a bus out of state lines to another city's airport and used a prepaid card to buy a plane ticket from the United States to Nurok, Greenland. From there I hitchhiked to Kilusuk to get a few supplies, and went north somewhere in the northeast Greenland National Park. I was off-grid. Way off-grid. I disappeared without a trace or explanation to anyone, which in retrospect was very selfish. Yes, I know, but I needed to figure some things out and I was not about to live another day being confused and trapped in a life I had no idea about or what the heck was going on, living day by day in the same routine. No. That was not going to be me. I took the last blotter of acid I was saving my first day settled in my temporary camp. Everything came out. My fears, my ideas, spirituality, my identity and my future. I went through heck and back on that trip and it hit me. I knew what I wanted. So after about a week off grid I traveled back to Kilusuk and stayed with a kind woman that spoke only a few words of English. She let me stay there for a while and I did chores around the house in exchange. I was really happy there and could have stayed forever, but I knew I had to get back to reality. Eventually I traveled back to Newark and spent last of my money on a plane ticket back to the States. I showed up at my house about 2 months after I disappeared and my family was speechless. My brother popped me so hard my nose was bleeding for hours it felt like. It's okay, I deserved it. But 5 years later I'm going to school to study chemistry and on my way towards a doctorate. My goal is to create and design new medicines to help people, more specifically Alzheimer's since it runs in my family. Things are looking bright, and my feelings of being lost without a purpose are no more. I have a purpose and I have a plan. 5 years later I'm going to school to study chemistry and on my way towards a doctorate. My goal is to create and design new medicines to help people, more specifically Alzheimer's since it runs in my family. I have a purpose and I have a plan, and a noble purpose. What's more? Abusive household. Anywhere else was better than at my family's home. Was 16 when I left. Couch hopped or slept in my car for a while. Saved up enough money to get place after I turned 18. So now I've got my own place and work for myself, but I still have a lot to learn about having and maintaining healthy relationships. My mother was both physically and mentally ill. She's better now, and was emotionally abusive towards my brother and I. We skipped school one day to go speak to my brother's lawyer about going to live with our father, and the school called my mom about our absences. She threatened us with a lot of different things, so we both just ran away that night. Took a plane to our dad's who 3 months later shipped me back just days before my senior year of high school ended for speaking to my mom again. That was 3 years ago and I have an alright relationship with both of them, but I'm much happier living on my own. I ran away a few times. First I lived with my mom mostly because my dad worked so much but I could go visit him whenever I wanted. I didn't get along with my stepdad at all. He was very pervy and just not a great person in general. I fought with them constantly. Eventually a fight led to me packing my bags and moving in with my dad. So I guess that doesn't really count as running away since I was still living with a parent. It didn't take long for me to realize my dad and I were not compatible living partners. We are both incredibly temperamental and my stepmother took every opportunity she could to throw fuel on the fire. He kicked me out, moved in with my aunt. I was 19 at this point, going to school and working and McDonald's to pay for school and give my aunt some rent money. I didn't too much mind living with my aunt, but she is practically Amish. No cable, no internet. I spent a lot of time in the college library. It was kind of torture. So I dropped the idea of moving in on my boyfriend. We had only been together for a few months and it was my first sort of serious relationship. I was a bad crap crazy teenager. He was a self-sufficient 20-something. I have no idea why he agreed. Thinking with his dong, I imagine. But we agreed that I'd move in after I finished school and I even lined up a job and a McDonald's by him. I didn't tell anybody else what I was planning and didn't say goodbye to anybody, which is why I consider it running away. After my last day of school I packed up all my crap and left without a word. In hindsight it was incredibly selfish. I didn't speak to any of my family for over a year, I think. It was so long ago. I can't even remember what prompted me to reconnect with my family, but I eventually did and we are mostly okay now. The boyfriend I moved in with, well, we had some insane ups and downs, including him having a major accidentally that left him partially disabled. That was a huge growing experience for me. I was not ready to take care of another human being, but we made it through, toughed it out, and after 8 years he finally agreed to marry me and we were married on our 9th anniversary. We are looking at houses to raise a family in and have been trying for a baby for a little over a year now. TLDR ran away from living with family to live with boyfriend. Now married and trying to start a family with boyfriend, now husband. I guess I'll be the runaway light version of the whole circumstance. After living with my mom for most of my life I was, due to uncontrollable outside circumstances, forced to live with my dad from 9th grade until I left at 22. We were basically dropped on him and he had nowhere to put us. So his girlfriend at the time invited us in. It was very caring and very respectable of her to do. She had no reason to allow it and probably shouldn't have, because she definitely didn't have the space. These were things my sister and I were reminded of on a weekly basis. She was hyper controlling, very domineering, and couldn't stand the fact that I didn't bend over at all times to accommodate her constant mood swings and nasty disposition. One day I came home after school and sat down to play WoW. The second I walked in I was met with a few meaningless demands. Clean the kitchen I never cooked and nor ate the food from. Do the laundry that wasn't mine and vacuum the rooms I never entered. I said I'd do it, but just wanted some time to relax. Too freaking bad. She ended up yelling at me for quite some time and I left to walk off my steam. As I left I said I'd be back and do all the things she wanted. Walked the block and came back to a locked front door. I fricked off to a friend's house and came back later to find that I had been moved from my room into the living room. Everything I owned moved out onto the ground. A month later, summer started and I left with a backpack of stuff and didn't show face for 3 months. Broke in to eat her food and steal and crap. After summer was over I showed back up to business as usual and accomplished nothing. Anyways, where am I now? 27, working my dream job, living in a great city, and I just bought a new car. So, panned out okay for me. Ran away at 16. Pretty severe child abuse and witnessing of appalling domestic violence. Spent the first year mostly homeless. Sofas, floors and cars as opposed to street homeless thankfully, and could afford to eat so little that at one point my BMI was as low as 13. 11 years on, my life is pretty stable. I've always managed to keep a job and a roof over my head, and these became increasingly more stable as time went on. I'm finally in a healthy and fulfilling relationship and am addressing some damaging core beliefs, anxieties, unhealthy beliefs. It's a work in progress, but I'm doing well on that front. This year I will finally be achieving the one thing I regret missing out on due to my choice. A university education. I've been accepted to start in September and am beyond happy to finally be able to realize this dream. Congratulations on your university acceptance, and good luck to you. Parents. Away from parents. Long answer. Controlling and neglectful parents were hampering my growth as an adult. Left home for college. Relationship improved. I was a dumb teenager, ran away from home at 17 with a guy, got pregnant, married and moved 800 miles away from home. Why? Because I was a stupid kid who, though she knew everything. It's been 22 years and I am still in the place I ran away to. Divorced my baby's daddy, we did make it work for 14 years. I am still here. I have remarried, my kids are great, I have a pretty good life. Wasn't raised by my parents. Grew up in an abusive household. The male legal guardian was abusive to me, emotionally and sometimes physically. The woman pretended not to see it all. Had been and still am. Battling depression and suicide since I was 10. Started working as soon as I could to be able to afford the basic things that they weren't providing me. He used to give me $80 a month, but I pretty much had to buy everything for myself with that money, except for the food at home. Still had to buy food for school, though. At 12, we got into an argument the night before. He hit me right when I came out of the shower. I was only wearing a towel. It was pretty traumatic. I ran away to my aunt's place for the summer, but after 1 month, they made me apologize and go back. I got drunk the night I had to go back because I was dreading it so much. At 17, I ran away to my grandma's because I couldn't handle it anymore. It was the year I was supposed to graduate, but everything had culminated to such an extent that I just couldn't function anymore. I wanted to live with my grandmother, but after letting me spend the weekend, they just wouldn't let me stay there. Apparently, my grandma was too old to take care of me. I left 2 weeks after graduation. I had some money, stayed in a small room while looking for an apartment. I found something great for me and my boyfriend. I started college. It was a bad first year, but the others have been okay. Rocky but okay. My ex-boyfriend and I lived together for 2 years before breaking up. I have had good internships, and I just published a book last year that I wrote when I was 14 and still living there. I live with my current boyfriend now, still in college. I'm fairly successful for a person my age, but I'm deeply traumatized, still have nightmares about everything daily or weekly. I am still depressed and suicidal, but I've been dealing with it for 10 plus years, so I guess I'll be okay. Would love to know what the book is. I ran away at least 3 times between 14 and 18. My father was strict to the point he would still give me a spanking when I was 17 years old. He overanalyzed everything I did, but I know he tried. At 18 I was kicked out when I refused to continue going to church. I'm now 30 years old and have 2 kids. I got my driver's license 3 years ago and am on disability for severe anxiety and depression. My family is one of those kick you out and then beg you to stay once you pack your bags type thing. I didn't leave for a long time because I was guilted or felt bad to leave. Well, my sister and I packed up the Jeep, got our cat and hit the road. Spent 10 days driving 1,200 miles. Slept in a tent the whole way. Took baths. Cooked food in a fire pit. Found this nice small town and was doing some laundry and getting a bite to eat. Met some people and ended up staying and working at this biker bar for a month. Slept in an RV out back lol. The place closed for the winter, so we are about 20 miles from there now. I mean, we were in a homeless shelter for 2 months. Broke and essentially starving. Our car broke down too, so that sucked. So, 6 months after we left, we've camped, worked in a carnival. I got in an accident. We were homeless. Whatever could go wrong did go wrong. We've been sharing a 1-bedroom apartment for 2 months now. Car is fixed, and we have no ties with the home anymore. It has been the best experience of my life. I still talk to my family, but if I tell them half the crap, why am I even worried about their opinions still? I was 16 when I split home. Dad was an abusive alcoholic mess and mom left when I was still a kid. My childhood friend was in a pretty similar situation, so we both just decided to leave Calgary. At first it was because we were drunk and just wanted to be rebellious, trying to scare our parents. But by the time we hitched all the way to Banff, we realized that we just couldn't turn back. I knew my dad would beat the crap out of me, so we just kept going. Now I'm 23 now, living in BC. Me and my bud are living in an RV and working part-time at a mechanic's shop in town. It's a decent living. Mind you, getting to where I am was a nightmare. Drinking addiction, getting into trouble with some seriously bad people, and well, just self-destructive. Things are much better now though, no complaints. I was 16 when I left home. My mom was crazy, and eventually the local police and school caught on to her craziness and I was allowed to leave legally, without actually getting emancipated. I stayed with friends a lot, and eventually found a job traveling. Did that for 5 or 6 years before I moved back to my hometown. I missed my brother and sister. After coming back, I learned that they both left home before 18 as well. Now I live in my own apartment, and have a great relationship with my younger siblings. My mother knows she was a screw up, and has since tried to apologize, but I just haven't been quite ready to hear it yet. She is a better person now that she doesn't have kids living with her. She never wanted kids, and has been vocal about that all our lives. Surprisingly, or not, none of us have kids of our own. I came home for college after one semester where I did relatively well, and my parents gave me an ultimatum. I either had to stay at my hometown, settle down, find a job, a boyfriend, I'm gay, get married, and start having kids, or leave and never contact the family again. I chose the latter, and at 19 I took the little money I had, hitched my way to Los Angeles, and bounced around a bunch of crap jobs waitressing until I turned to escorting. I started doing a lot of serious drugs and drinking, and I got seriously depressed, but I kept at it because I was making a lot of money through escorting. After 3 years of that, and a jail time scare, I tried to kill myself through an overdose. A friend discovered me, took me to a hospital, and told me to clean myself up. I moved to Portland after that, and life really started getting better. I'm 25 now. I work at a nice hipstery coffee shop. I've got a house that I'll live in with my best friend, and I'm really starting to move on from that life. I cut off all contact with the people from my escort days. I've contacted one of my brothers, who is the first family member I've been in touch in over 5 years' time, and I've been in 2 relationships that didn't last, but were very nice. The hardest part is staying sober, which I definitely wouldn't have made it this far without the people I've surrounded myself with. They've done a good job of keeping reined in. My mom was fine with me being in the house, and that's it. There was food etc, but she didn't teach me anything. Never made me brush my teeth when I was younger. Shower, no doctor's appointments, vaccines or anything. I got really sick a lot. After I got into junior high, she started dating one of her exes, a guy from her high school years, and since I wasn't getting straight A's in school like his 2 kids, he decided he hated me. I had a lot of broken ribs and similar things for 3 years while he lived with us, and he threatened to kick me out. So I left. Have been on my own since then, 4-5ish years now. 20 YO, living in a house with a roommate, working back shifts that pays really well, and getting a motorcycle soon so I can be 100% independent since I've had to take buses and get rides to the city from my friends. I'm still learning a lot of things that I should already know, and teaching myself a lot of things my mom should have taught me. I was upset with the babysitter, probably just for existing. My satchel of critical survival items, and I made it about as far away as across the neighboring field before she caught up with me. Very Calvin and Hobbes. Not sure if it counts, as I left when I was 18, and legally adult in my country. My brother has developed a drug addiction and the family disintegrated. Combine that with my Asperger's syndrome, and it was simply too much to bear. Lived in my car for a few days, then moved to a cheap flat in a nearby city, had some previous savings. Got a job 2 months later and became completely independent. I am now studying robotics, doing web development and working as a taxi driver part-time to pay for my rent. No tuitions in my country. I reconciled with my parents 2 years later. My brother overdosed it since and is now dead. I'm sorry it was rough. My brother overdosed and passed too. I'm learning web development myself and my girlfriend teaches robotics class, so thought your story wasn't far off from my own. It's really great seeing the stories of people that leave and completely make it. My hat's off to you. I've run away twice. First time, I was 17 and I had a mini mental breakdown over my life situation and being super depressed. I bought a bus ticket and jumped ship to California for a year. Met an awesome girl, realized I'm attracted to girls, spent a lot of time sleeping on couches before my uncle finally found me and convinced me to stay with his family. Got my head together and came back home. At 22 I did the same exact thing but for different reasons. Controlling family driving me insane. Bought a plane ticket this time and spent a week in California with my best friend. Parents eventually convinced me to come home. I repeated this pattern a couple times before finally realizing that I needed to get my crap together. In school now, running away, I mean signing a contract to work in South Korea after I finish school. Parents don't think I'm actually leaving. I am lol. Though I don't think this last one is so much running away as it is finally getting sick of my family's drama and baggage. It's haunted me my whole life. Korea is far enough away that the only one who can screw it up is me. Mostly cause no one in my family has enough money to follow me or force me to come back once I'm gone. When I was 17 I ran away from home. Mum walked out on my dad and 2 kids for drugs. My dad passed away when I was 16. Aunt took me in but she was emotionally and physically abusing. Had enough. Stuffed as many clothes as I could in a trash bag and left. Couch surfed at friends' places for a year. At 18 joined the military because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and a recruiter got me hyped up to serve my country. Got out at 22-23 years old and now I'm currently in college and about to finish up my undergraduate in accounting. There are more details but this is just a summary. I left home for 9 months at 17. My parents were getting a divorce and the stress made them both not emotionally available to the kids. We were taken care of physically but the year leading up to the actual divorce was hard on them and I guess 4 kids was too much to handle. I had been diagnosed with depression and needed one of them to be there but they weren't. Fall break comes and my mom allows me to fly out of state to visit with a family member and my long distance boyfriend. We lived in that area when I was younger and I knew him from school. And I end up seeking out and venting to my absent biological father near the family member's home who sees this as an opportunity to hurt my mom. Long story short he convinces me he loves me and can hide me if I just don't catch my flight home and he can help me get away from that situation. So I get dropped off at the airport and instead of going to the plane I just change clothes in the bathroom and walk to the mall to be picked up. Worst 9 months of my life. I should have known my bio dad wasn't actually wanting to help and would still be the same controlling, abusive, deadbeat drunk he always was but I was a sad and easily manipulated teenager. I didn't even see him for 2 months of that. I was dropped off at his friend's house and he would just call once in a while. Eventually I escaped my dad's house and my mom took me right back in with loving and forgiving arms. I learned he would never change and my parents learned to not take their stress out on the kids. We all have a better relationship now. Army, it's where I belong. Not super serious, but is true. I ran away one time for about 3 hours because my mom said I couldn't have a dog. I wrote a letter saying I was running away, went into the woods we were somewhat surrounded by and got kinda lost. I don't remember the details 100% but I think I came back before anyone noticed I was gone. Retrieved my note and trashed it. I played outside a lot so it was probably assumed that I was doing just that. I was somewhere between 7 and 12. 15 years later, I freaking hate dogs and I love my mommy very much. My mom is one, basically left at 18 in the Netherlands, never contacted family or looked back. Now birth mother of 2 but legal mother of 4. Great family, nice house, nice neighborhood. The only thing she's struggling with now is that she has no driver's license and no degrees of any kind, just high school, so she has to do cleaning work. Physically abusive dad, who worked away. Emotionally abusive stepmother who hated him and took all of her rage out on me in his absence. Couldn't win. Left when I was 16. Slept on a friend's couch. Became an emancipated minor and now I'm far away with a great profession and spend my time with people who make me feel loved. Oh, well, glad to see you are doing well now. You have been spotted by the money pigeon. Comment gimme gimme and he will bless you with good fortune. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.